What is up, everybody? The UFC rankings are out. I think I cover a different sport now. I am Matt Parrino, and my co-host has left the building, which is on brand for what our show was and is, and has been. I'm Matt Parrino.
Matt, I'm Forrest Griffin. Matt, how cold is it where you are?
It's cold. It's about 20 degrees right now.
It feels great here in Vegas. Great.
That's the first thing Forrest said to me when I said I was going back to Buffalo to take this job. He says, "Isn't it like really cold there?" And I said, "Yeah, most of the year. But you know, it's great people and a hopefully great football team that's kind of on the come up, and it has been. So it's been a fun journey. I do miss the UFC, and I do miss all the folks out there. And actually, this is the Rankings Report reunion show. So one thing that people always say to me, and I get a lot of Bills fans that watch all of our Bill shows and the podcast, and they're always like, you know what, dude? Like, I kind of like remember you from this other thing I used to watch. I'm a huge MMA UFC fan, and you did this thing with Forrest Griffin, and I loved it. And that's kind of why I watched this. So I'm like, all these years, I'm like, I wanted to redo this.
I would say not enough people watched, otherwise we'd still be doing it. It's been that good. Sorry, God, it was a great idea. I thought it was bad. I don't know why I never found legs. Maybe it was because you had a unreliable co-host. I think that was it.
I don't know about that. You were pretty reliable. But let me introduce some people here because this is a reunion show. And obviously you always saw Forrest and I on those episodes. But below, Shawn and Lisa were, pretty much the driving force behind the show. Shawn was the initial creator of the show. The initial idea for this came from him.
Is that Lisa Foiles from the UFC Minute?
What?
Yes, it is. How did you know? See, he did watch stuff. Unbelievably awesome.
He knows.
And then Matt Fulton was a longtime producer on the show, helped us kind of do everything. And honestly, he was so much more important than that because even from the start of the show, every idea that I ever had usually came from conversation with him. So I had to get him back here as well and just kind of get the band back together, talk a little bit about it. And Shawn, I want you to go into a little bit where this idea came from and your original conversation to get it greenlit.
Well, I would say we started the show back in 2015, 2014, something like that, maybe 5-6 years ago. That was kind of a revitalization for UFC.com at the time. We had what was Nancy's title? I know was she just the head of,
she was the editor-in-chief of UFC.com. Yep.
Yeah. So Nancy Gay took over and was looking for some new shows. So pitched her some ideas, one of which was a ranking show that kind of told the story of what has just happened in the previous week's fights and then kind of look forwards to the future fights with some flair with you and with Forrest. So for whatever reason, Nancy agreed to back this show. I actually found my initial notes for the meeting. It says, this is the initial pitch notes, ranking show with Forrest Mondays, on-camera host, no phone analyst, graphics of ranking, video of fighting, and then
video of fighting. That's important. That was always going to be important.
Can I jump in for a second? Lisa, is Shawn a hoarder? Does he hoard things?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
We have like 20 bins in the garage full of just crap, and maybe 2 of them are mine. They all just say Shawn.
Yeah, I have a bottle around here of all the gum that you spit out because I just thought, it'll make you happy. But yeah, so Nancy was into it. We talked to Forrest. He was super into it. Met with the team and got a pilot. Did really well. And how many years did we do that show for? Like 4 or 5 years, something like that?
Last episode, I actually looked it up. It was September of 2017 of our show, and then obviously they rebranded a little bit, upgraded the host. Megan O'Leary took over and went on for a few more episodes after that. But it just kind of, it kind of fell out. And I think like the original idea for it, for me personally, I think the reason it didn't work long term is because what we envisioned for it was kind of just like a fun, laid back kind of show. It wasn't like ever going to be this super produced, serious thing that you'd find on ESPN or Fox or whatever. I mean, you talked about that at the start, Shawn. And Lisa, one of the cool things about it is you felt like we were just in the UFC, gym with Forrest Griffin, and that was like the kind of fun of it.
That was the best part, in my opinion, was that everything, especially back in 2014, 2015, everything related to fighting got so serious. All the, the production value made it look like they were these like, everything were these sort of epic action movie trailers for everything. And then, sorry, Forrest, am I boring you?
That's trying to see what book he's reading there.
Sorry,
oh, cool.
There you go.
And the best part about it, though, is this kind of stuff, that it was personality based. The value in the show was not necessarily on the quality of the camera or the lighting. It was that people could tune in, watch something that was roughly about a thing that they like, learn some things, maybe, usually laugh and have a good time. And it was just a really fun escape.
Did you get a text message last night, Shawn?
Me?
Did you get a text message? Yeah. Who did you get a text message?
Oh, yeah. This is so fun. I got a text from Forrest last night when we were talking about, because this is how much input or prep we usually do for the show. Forrest texted me last night at 9:20 that said, "Hey, could someone send me the rankings from this week?" And I'm looking at Lisa going, Forrest is the only one that still works there.
Yeah.
I was the only one that actually had that email, and I was like, "Oh yeah." So, all right, I look at the rankings every week, and then I delete it. There's a cathartic effect. I have so many emails now that I have a real job. It's crazy. So I look through the rankings. I say, "Okay, it looks about right," and I delete it. So I'd already deleted it before I ever even start talking to you guys. Quick question: why did you guys, Shawn? Why me as a host?
Well, a couple of options. Number one, you were in the building.
Availability. That's what I do.
Availability was huge.
Yeah.
And if there's one thing that we have learned over the years with fighters, promptness is not strong suit. So if I can be relatively sure approximately where you're going to be most of the time, it really helped in the production of the show.
Well, you knew what time lunch was, and they had a good lunch at the old UFC, so you knew I was going to be around.
Yep. And I forget who it was. Who was the other guy that shared an office with you at the time? Was it
James Kimball?
Chris? James.
Chris
James
Parvino too. They're all in there.
Yeah. They would always shoot me a text or give me a heads up if you ever left on a Monday during lunchtime. Just like, hey, he's not here, so FYI.
I didn't even know that. That's hilarious.
But no, and then the other thing is a show that we did a pilot for. You'll remember this years ago. Was I forget what we called it? Fight Tracks, where it was you and
it was like
you and
Aldo was the fight we were breaking down.
No, well, remember the one with you and Stefan, where we basically sat you guys down in a room and you just watched fights and just did commentary.
Have you and Bonner ever done anything together before?
We've done a lot of little stuff, but that was actually really good. Those fights, they had an upside. Me and Stefan did a ton of stuff for Spike together, and looking back on it, it's actually better than I thought. I was putting together a reel of myself, believe it or not, and I was like, "This isn't horrible. This is, maybe what I really mean is I haven't gotten any better in the last 15 years at doing this. So I was like mediocre decent then, and I'm mediocre decent now. So I got that going for me."
Let me add a little
Well,
nugget on what he just asked, though, because he said, "Why did you want me as host?" And I think now, like 30,000-foot view, looking back on it, why you're so relatable is because you not only were in it, so you were a fighter, you then went on to be an analyst and studied it, but you're also in the room with a lot of guys now that go in it. So you have this ability to look at the game with like kind of through three different lenses. And that's rare in anything, any walk of life, any business to have. Like for me, I cover football. I never played football. I never coached football, but I study. I talk to people that do it. But you have that rare kind of ability to kind of see it from all angles.
Well, and I'll say too that Fight Track show was something that I worked on with Ant Evans, who also used to work at the UFC, and Ant was one of the people who showed me the spike stuff that you had done with Stefan, and it really is good, and that moved itself into Fight Tracks, which we pitched, eventually didn't get picked up for whatever reason. And when we came up with this idea, just knowing we were joking about it before, but your personality of somebody that has this knowledge, but also relatable, has a personality, somebody that you're a person that if you don't know you go, I bet that dude's fun to hang out with.
And then you met me and you were like, wow, I was really mistaken on that.
Well, we were committed at that point. We already got the graphics created.
But here's the thing though, like Shawn started it and had this great idea, and we had some really bad shows at the start that were looking back kind of just horrible. Nothing to do with Shawn, mostly to do with me.
Stuffy comes to mind.
Yeah, stuffy. But then Lisa kind of took over, and for everybody that knows Lisa Foyle, UFC Minute, all the great stuff that she does on her channel, like separate from MMA, she was the driving force behind it. As soon as Shawn left and kind of took over, like I can't believe how many days you had to babysit us and put us on the kind of right track to get us. How did you do that? And A, how did you do that? But B, how did you have the patience for the nonsense?
Well, it was crazy because it was kind of my first time being behind the camera. Ever since I was 12 years old, I've always been in front of the camera and hosting and acting and, doing just, everything, talking to an audience. So I actually learned so much being behind the camera and kind of helping direct you guys, which you really didn't need that much direction. You already had such good chemistry. Matt, you were so funny, but you were kind of more the straight man. And then Forrest would chime in with his comments. And, Matt was almost like a friend of the audience while Forrest was like calling them losers sometimes. You know what I mean? It was like such a good back and forth that it just worked. And so I was cracking up behind the camera and I'm like, if I think this is funny, then surely the audience thinks this is funny. So, I really didn't have to do that much. You guys pretty much like once you figured out the run of each show, you guys just kind of, took it and ran. So
here's kind of what I pride myself on. And when kind of the concept came to me, why I wanted to do it was because you always have to break down a fight before it happens, right? And that's hard, right? But after you see a fight, you're like, oh my gosh, I should have known that was going to happen, right? Mm-hmm. You guys know exactly what I'm talking about. So I wanted to more explain why things happened. And I thought, well, the rankings is a recap show. It's never going to be as popular as those before the fight shows. But, let's see what happened. Like, let's examine why a kick worked, So it's just that immediate kind of sense of, oh, here's the thing. And then they would let us use some like UFC footage from like the fights, like, did just happen. So I thought that was awesome.
Fulto.
Yeah.
What did thinking back on it now, I mean, I remember when I started some of the stuff when I first got to Syracuse.com and started doing some of the stuff on the Bills, he would text me and be like, yeah, this is terrible. Like we need to do something different here. And listen, I think what we created in the Rankings Report and where we kind of left it off was we had high expectations. But what did you like so much about that show? Because you were somebody that was like the target demographic more than anything else.
Yeah, I think Lisa hit it on it a couple times. Was that like Matt, talked to the audience and kind of broke it down. Like, here's the rankings. Here's what we're going to see. And then Forrest told you why the fight played out the way it did. what that means going forward. And I thought, as somebody standing off to the side all the time, kind of just watching you guys work, was like, I can relate to these guys. I can relate to Forrest. I can relate to Matt. I see what they're saying, and I just enjoyed watching it. I think all the conversations that we had in the old, El Camino building at the UFC,
Good old days.
the good days,
the mice in the ceiling. Those were the days.
Yeah, and so and that's not, and like I felt it was comfortable. Like just watching it felt comfortable. Being around you guys and kind of helping produce the show a little bit was comfortable, and I think that's what people came across when they watch it on YouTube and watch it back now. It's like it feels like you're sitting in your house on your couch with Forrest and Matt every week. So that was cool.
All right, let's talk a little bit of fights here, and we'll probably bring up some more memories here. But the big fight over the weekend, I wanted to get into with you a little bit. Conor, Dustin. Did it go the way that you kind of anticipated, and were you surprised that it seemed like Conor didn't seem prepared at all for the leg kicks?
This is for me.
Yeah, this is for you. Come on, we're going to the fight expert here.
He wasn't. First off, let's say Conor won the first round and looked great doing it. I don't even know if it was the leg kicks. What I think Conor was maybe unprepared for was when he landed his left hand relatively clean. And as I know Poirier pretty well, I was nervous. I was like, oh my gosh. But Dustin was fine. He pointed at him. He shook it off. He literally like, oh, you got me. Gave him like a nod. And that's when probably for him, it was like, okay, I'm landing my best tool on this kid. And he's just standing there, And there were times where, Dustin looked like he might be in a little bit of trouble, right? And then, the announcers talked about it so much, and they were talking about it in fights earlier that night. He just kept putting the money in the bank with the calf kicks, and that changed the game. And then, like that pivotal moment was actually a lackluster kick by Poirier. Conor comes over looking for a big counter, and Poirier caught him with just a little right hook. It wasn't even the biggest punch that he caught him with at that point, but it hurt him because I don't think Conor saw it. I think he was, committing to his own offense at that point. So definitely not what I expected, but it was a great fight. And, hopefully a lot of people paid money to see it, so I felt like that.
Yeah, I think a lot of people did. And, one of the things for me going into that fight that I was worried about for Conor was what he mentioned, the ring rust. And I know we've talked about this in the past, whether it is or isn't a thing, but just not having the time in there, even before the Cerrone fight. How long was he out before that one? I mean, it's been like 2 fights now in like what, 2.5 years. It hasn't been a lot of action. And I want to ask you about this though. One of the things that kind of came to mind was, Dustin got dinged in that first fight. And it's kind of a glancing blow. They were fighting down at 145. How much has that move up to 155 and settling into his body a little bit more, do you think impacted his ability to take punishment? Because he's been in some wars since then and taken unbelievable shots.
I mean, you think about like the Dan Hookers, Gaethje's, Eddie Alvarez. It's just unbelievable. And here was a kid at 45. You thought, oh, his chin might be a little questionable. At 55, you're like, man, don't abuse your chin, Dustin. Like like I said, he took Conor's big shots early on and was fine with it. He took Eddie Alvarez's shots. He took, Gaethje's shots, for crying out loud, And it was Gaethje that was hurting him with the leg kick, actually. But yeah, I mean,
how do you guys down there? Well, to the right here. How do you guys experience the UFC now? Because I think that's such an interesting question. Like, we're so in it when we work there, and I watched every fight that happened, every minute of every fight. And now, and obviously covering another professional sport, you just lose track of it a little bit. I still watch a great deal of it, but I definitely don't experience it the same way. The analyzation of it, the every minute. I mean, how do you guys all experience the UFC now?
Well, I think. Go ahead. No, you first.
So I was thinking, it's interesting because while I was there, my job wasn't to watch the fights like Matt's was. My job was to do some other things, digital coordinator, anti-piracy type stuff. So watching the fights wasn't always something that we got to do until we came back on Monday and Matt and I would talk about the fights. So I think now when I look back, I go, I get to watch them a little bit more as a fan. I get to be engaged in what I want to do. And so, on Saturday when I watched the fights, it was fun and I enjoyed it. But I always felt like my knowledge had kind of lessened because I don't watch it every day. I don't see it every day. I don't talk about it like we used to. So that's for me though. I still enjoy it though.
It's almost more fun now because I get to have an opinion on it and I get to like certain fighters and not necessarily every fighter. Still have some friends that work there, and like a couple 4th of Julys ago, had a friend over, like July of maybe 2019, I think, had a friend over and was just going to watch the fireworks in the backyard. And then at like 6 o'clock, she just looks down at her phone and goes, crap, I got to go. I'm like, what? She's like, John Jones. And I'm just like, what? She's like, I don't know. He's out. So we got to go change everything. I got to go right now. And I'm like, okay, well, see you later. Like, so it's fun to be able to, I kind of get all of the good side of it now because it's, a sport that I loved prior to working there and still one that I enjoy after the fact. And, I feel like my time there made me enjoy the UFC a lot more because I know a lot more of the ins and outs of it. But now I just don't have all of the bad side of it. I get all of the positives. So
yeah, we used to watch the embeddeds, and for a while there, I felt like my whole world was UFC because I was doing the UFC every single minute, and then I was doing Rankings Report on a weekly basis. So it was just knowledge overflow in my brain of everything UFC. So by the time the fight came around, it's like I'd already been doing it all week. So it's just like it was just like so much. So now I get pleasantly surprised when I hear a pay-per-view is coming up and kind of research it a little bit beforehand, but not too much. So I get to be surprised with new fighters as I watch them. So yeah, we still try to keep up. Definitely not as knowledgeable as before, but we still enjoy it.
How are you able to keep up with it for us? Because I mean, like you said, your job probably has evolved even since I left. I mean, what are you doing now, and how tough is it to keep up with it all?
So I'm actually a few fights behind. Just a miss. I always miss the daggone prelims for some reason. So I'm a few fights behind, but other than the last week, I've seen every UFC fight this year. I've seen most LFAs. I'm a couple of LFA fights behind. I've seen most, Cage Warriors. I think I might have seen all the Cage. So, I mean, I watch every fight I can, and then I tell my wife I'm working. And it's pretty irritating for her. Oh, I'm working. It's like, Forrest, you're sitting watching fights. You're not even taking notes. I'm like, Darren, here, babe. And then, so we have guys come to the Performance Institute, and if it's a first-time, athlete coming in, I'll usually watch their last fight to see where they did well or wrong, or maybe they, did they gas out? Did they appear to be overmatched on the fence in a strength category? Like, what physical attribute should they improve going to their next fight? And that's something I'll, kind of ask them about and, kind of point them to the testing I think maybe is most applicable for them. Did they miss weight? Did they feel bad because of the weight cut, whatever, how can we kind of help them perform better, right?
That's awesome. I'll let you guys drive it a little bit. I mean, what questions do you guys have? What do you guys want to talk about? I feel like, go ahead, Shawn. You always got.
You're the host. What are you talking
about? I know, but I'm always hosting. I'd like somebody else to drive the car for a little while. Sometimes Dad likes to go in the back seat and take a nap. You know what I mean?
How about my boy, the new guy to the rankings? What's his name? Let's see him right here. This is why I was always the co-host, never the host.
Yeah, who are you talking about? We didn't even
to which ranking?
Michael Chandler.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Number 4 with a bullet.
What a debut! Did you expect that? I guess because that was
nope.
He was a beast at Bellator. He had some wars there. I mean, he had some good fights, some good performances, but he that's pretty serious to knock out Hooker like that.
And Dan Hooker didn't look great, right? But with that said, Dan Hooker, he's ranked number 8, so he was ranked 6. So yeah, I mean, Dan Hooker was pretty legit, and I think the rankings for 155 are correct. Khabib's the champ. Poirier is number 1 contender. Gaethje's number 2. to me, Charles Oliveira might be number 2. Michael Chandler's 3 or 4, right? So they're pretty right. Like, I agree with whoever does the rankings. And you remember how I would ask, like, how do these happen like 1,000 times? Like, I don't get it. It's like, it's these reporters, and then the other week it's these reporters, and they are MMA experts. I'm like, oh, but I don't like what they did.
Yeah, that was always a big point of contention. I think it was always like, who ranks these people?
Yeah,
like
there were some questionable folks in that pool for a long time. I've not checked in on it in a while, but there were names where, like, you know, if you like, for instance, if you know who's covering the MMA, like, you know, the big players. I mean, the Iolis, the Ariels, the Brett Okamotos, the John Morgans. Not a lot of those guys were in the pool, and so it was kind of like, oh, what's going on here? You know, looking back at Chandler's career here a little bit, you know, he's had some eye-popping losses. I mean, Brett Primus, Will Brooks twice, Eddie Alvarez. So I get to your point, Patricio Pitbull.
yeah.
To your point, coming in, probably expectations aren't super high, but here's my storyline to watch. You know, he works with who I think is the premier striking coach in the game, in Henry Hooft, who I think, you know, one of my big dudes. I mean, I'm friends with him. The bias is definitely there. Kamaru Usman. I mean, he's helped completely shape his striking style, which was unbelievable. In my opinion, one of the, like, for a wrestler to the display that he put on against Colby was unbelievable. Hoof just does this with all the guys that he works with for the most part.
Well, both was actually a pretty decent boxing match for both guys. And let's also, you know, let me play the devil's advocate and say, look, Usman outboxed another wrestler,
Right?
Colby Covington, right? And they decided they would box each other. That's what happened in that fight. So it's not like he didn't box much against Masvidal.
no,
That's fair. But that's smart too. That's smart
what I
too.
was worried about with Michael Chandler and his relationship with Henry Hooft. Sometimes when you're a very high level wrestler or grappler with that body type, with the short, you know, the wrestler's frame, right?
He's got the Frankie Edgar type body.
Well, no, he's thicker than Frankie. Come on.
Yeah, I know, but you know what I'm saying. I'm Frankie at 135. He's got that kind of body.
He's got a wrestler's body.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes you fall in love with your new tools, as I think maybe, you know, somebody says. And you know, would he try to strike too much, and maybe he should strike to wrestle and then wrestle to strike, right? Not put it together enough, right? So that's what I was worried about in this fight, is that he might decide to just, hey man, I'm a good striker, I'll strike with this Dan Hooker guy. Well, that's fine, but ideally you would wrestle a striker like Dan Hooker. And all the things I said are fine, except I was very wrong, because he struck with him and did just fine.
You tended to do that. You tended to be wrong a lot. Go ahead, Sean.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously, piggybacking off of that, you've been doing this for a long time. You know, in the last, I mean, you've been retired as a fighter for what, 6 or 7 years now?
7, yeah, so long.
7 years. Yeah. Looking at it now from the outside, do you see kind of the sport, you know, having evolved to a different way, that if you were a fighter that was starting now, that you personally would have done something different because of the way that the UFC has transformed?
Absolutely. You know, there was 0 calf kicks in my day. I got kicked in the calf every now and again. It was an accident. I was like, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to kick you in the calf. You know, I was trying to kick you in the thigh. But yeah, you know, so everything's different. Guys train smarter. I hear guys say things like, it's my deload week, you know? I mean, if you'd have been in Extreme Couture or at Vanderlei's gym and you said, oh, no, guys, it's my deload week, they would have been like, why don't you deload your ass out the door, you wimp? Like, let's unload you. You know, nobody said that. Now guys are reasonable. They're like, oh, you know, I'm only going to do 4 rounds today. You know, my volume, blah, blah, blah. You know, guys know what they're doing. And then there's more time devoted to acquiring technical skills, which is easier on your body, as opposed to let's go, which is more fun, but harder on your body.
You think it's harder now or to be a fighter, or do you think it was harder back then when you didn't have quite the level of knowledge, just in general, like no one did, as much of like the science side as they do now.
Yeah, so no, it's the same, right? Because it was the same playing field. We all knew the same stupid stuff back then, and everybody now kind of knows the same thing. The other thing is, yeah, there's more fights, there's more fighters, more opportunities, but there's also a lot more people that want those opportunities. So it really hasn't changed as far as like a level of difficulty. It's only evolved in the way it happens, And I'll tell you something that strikes me. YouTube, the internet, the Instagram, Facebook, the clips of fighting have changed the game. And what I mean by that is, well, now there's a billion little fights, right? So there's fights everywhere all the time. You guys remember when there were 10 to 12 UFCs a year and maybe 6 prides, and that was it. Other than that, it was going to be some local fight, which you'd never see. I remember those days, and you would have like look for film on people. It was like, you get like some DVD that was like maybe the fight was on there. It's all right there on the internet, readily available. So if I see a great fight and I see a move, I can just go on Fight Pass or whatever. I watch the LFA. I'll say, oh my God, there's the guy, that's an amazing move. And then Monday, guess what everybody's doing in the gym? Hey, let's learn that move we just saw. So the sport keeps growing faster and faster, and that's the good side of social media. We won't talk about the 8,000 bad sides of social media. But that's kind of the internet has sped the game up a little bit, right? Everybody's watching that calf kick back. I got a camera system coming, so I can break down fights with different angles in slow mo to see exactly like which way a guy's foot's facing, etc. That's kind of one of the things I get to do.
Well, and you're not right. It wasn't that long ago either. When I first started was during one of the first things I worked on was the launch of Fight Pass, and even within the first 3 or 4 months of that launching, we were still like literally cutting fights out for fighters that we would put on like a hard drive and send them. Like if somebody wanted to do any sort of research on whoever their upcoming opponent would be, we would literally, anybody who ever wanted any fights, we would send it to them.
The guy's last 3 fights. I remember doing that all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we came in, I think Matt and I came in right as Fight Pass launched as well. I think what I look at now is like as a fan, I get to go, like you said, Lion Fight, Cage Warriors, and then a library of other fights that I can go and watch and enjoy that, like if I didn't see, Dustin's first couple fights, at 145, I can go back and watch those now and kind of, enjoy them and watch a guy progress. And I think that part as a fan is so great about what's Fight Pass and YouTube and, all these kind of different, promotions that are out there now.
Speaking of the internet changing the game, we got to talk about this new sensation, if that's what we want to call them, these Paul brothers. Jake is he's really just stepped out of bounds a little bit the last like 2 months and really taken all of the attention. And now he I guess he's fighting Ben Askren, which honestly is interesting. Like I want your thoughts on that, on the matchup first and foremost, because obviously Ben Askren not known for his striking, but I think that's a gamble. He's been training striking for years.
Time out. Does Ben Askren know that this is a boxing match?
I think he does.
They made him aware that he is accidentally signing up for a boxing match, because I think he does. I don't think he signed up for that on purpose.
Yeah.
All right, Matt, bring in Ben Askren.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he does know it for us, but I think that the idea is, hey, you knocked out Nate Robinson, and how long did it take him to knock out Nate Robinson? Like it took him I think they got out of the first round.
I think it went to the second round.
It went to the second round. I mean, listen, I know it's boxing, but let's not pretend here that Jake Paul is some KO artist that's coming in there. And of course, he trains boxing. He spars. He's probably levels up on Ben Askren, but Ben Askren's a fighter, and I don't know. They're wearing pillows on their hands. I'll be interested to see what happens. I wouldn't say I would be interested to see if this is the kind of situation where an MMA fighter goes over to a boxing match and some type of takedown doesn't happen just out of habit.
Desperation. Yeah.
Desperation.
I don't know. Look, man. Yeah, I mean, Ben Askren was really probably the greatest fighter ever. You know, he did a lot for a guy with no hands, right? That's the joke, you know. He accomplished more than he could be expected to. But man, so I've seen which Paul, the Jake guy.
Yeah, he fought Nate Robinson. He's only fought twice. Like we don't really know what he is.
Is he the guy that fought KSI?
No, that's his brother.
No, that's the brother. That's the brother. What's his brother's name?
Logan.
Okay.
So here's the deal. I think it was Jake Paul. It might have been Logan Paul, but I saw one of them sparring. And man, I'll tell you what, there's nothing more dangerous than a relatively young, athletic guy that doesn't know his limitations. He punches hard just in the sparring footage. There's sparring footage of him like dazing people out there, right?
Right.
Backing people, and you can tell they're, you know, stepping in the potholes, etc. Like, oh, is there an earthquake? Nope, you're knocked out. But, you know, and that's a dangerous combo. A guy with a good energy system, you know, a good gas tank, that's young, naive. You know, it's almost he's fortunate to be so dumb, right? Or not dumb, but naive in the game, right? So,
right,
and he's got power and a little bit of conditioning. So I think, man. I mean, I think, you know, we need to get like a Daniel Cormier type and somebody to talk, what's his name, down off this ledge.
Here's my thing, though. Here's my thing. Yeah. To play devil's advocate. Ben Askren's been in there with Robbie Lawler in an MMA fight with 5-ounce gloves.
Yeah.
Knowing that the time spent in there, and he's going to go a couple 2-minute rounds with this kid with the pillows on their hands. Like, I don't know. I think he probably thinks 8-2s. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to probably have any illusion that he's going in there and knocking this kid out. But I think the point is to say you're not going to knock out a real fighter. Whether or not he can accomplish that, I'm not sure. Yeah. But I think he'll probably ding him a little bit. I'm sure he'll be in the lab with Duke Rufus and try to figure something out. I don't know. Maybe I'm off base. Part of me is just not buying into this whole Paul deal.
I disagree, man. I like it.
Horrible. We don't want to because it's just disgusting. But sorry, what were you going to say?
No, I like it. I mean, I think he's bringing eyeballs to boxing, which I think it needs. So, you know,
was that what boxing was, or was that celebrity death match with him and Nate Robinson? But that wasn't boxing. That was, of course, we all wanted to watch Mike Tyson. That's why I bought the pay-per-view, and that's why I watched it. Right. I was talking to Dana about this a couple weeks ago. Of course, I wanted that. But the Mike Tyson fight, that was just like kind of like why you go to the carnival or go to the circus. Like, I don't know. If he fights a real dude, fine. Like, go fight a real dude, and I'll watch it. And I'll watch the Ben Askren fight.
Right.
But I don't know. I think it's a sideshow.
It is a sideshow, but maybe that's what boxing needs to get out of the kind of, I think, in the rut that it's kind of in without some major stars. I mean, I could be wrong about that, but
I like it. I like it.
There's stars out there. There's a lot.
But they don't fight all the time. They don't fight.
Yeah, you know, as a boxer, you fight twice a year. Ryan Garcia's fighting a bit. This is funny. I was never a boxing fan. I don't know how much you guys do not. I don't even like boxing. I never knew anything about boxing. I've had some boxing matches, but I had them just like developing my MMA. Like literally, I'm 0-2, and then like 1-1. You know, as a boxer, and then like I would grapple that week and do like a wrestling practice, and then the next day I'd go do like an amateur boxing match just because I wanted to do it. You know. That was back when I was dumb enough to pay money to compete, which is such a stupid concept. But yeah, I never liked boxing until recently. And now only recently have I kind of really like, okay, there's boxing's pretty cool. There's a lot to it. And I kind of, you know, I follow a few like, you know, the boxing reporters, and I kind of just listen to what they say, and then I attempt to regurgitate it. How's it going? No. But yeah, so I just started liking boxing. I think this is the opposite of what it is. I think it detracts from your actual boxing stars. And it's either like, you know, that's not boxing. These two people are not boxers. Ben Askren and the Paul guys, they're not boxers, right? So it's not boxing. It's actually taking eyes and money away from the actual beautiful sport that is the sweet science and putting them over here. And like even when Floyd Mayweather, if he were to fight somebody, you know, he's retired. He's past his prime. He, you know, good for him.
He is fighting. He's fighting his brother. He's fighting Logan.
Yeah. I mean, good for him. He can make a big paycheck, you know. But as far as the sport, he's not something that boxing wants to build. Boxing's not going to make any more money off him. He's not going to build the sport of boxing. You know what I'm saying? It needs to be like the young guys, the up and comers, the mid tier guys, the guys that are in there paying their dues now. Not even the Mike Tyson's of the world. I know a lot of people bought that fight like substance, whatever it was.
Well, I've got a little bit of experience in this realm, thinking that I was a fighter and not nearly training as much as I should, challenging someone who does this for a living. And it didn't turn out well for me.
Yeah,
I believe
the greatest part about it was is that I think Shawn did it thinking like, oh, he'll put the choke on me, like, but he'll know. But I'm pretty sure he tried to choke you out, which was great.
No, he did. At this point, I don't know if you remember, Forrest, you were whispering in my ear, "I'm controlling your breathing."
Yes, that is beautiful, isn't it? What a cool thing to say to somebody.
Yeah. And I'm just
drop that line. I like right now. Your life is in my arms. Like right.
That's
now.
what you said.
No, breathe. No.
And I'm just going, please stop. And you're going, no. And I remember tapping, going, stop it. And you're like, oh, there's no ref here. And I'm like, wait.
Yeah.
I think you were looking at us to help, and we kind of were like, hey, this is your idea, man.
So all I'm saying is that, yes, this could turn out to be quite an entertaining fight. However, it does also have the potential to not turn out the way that one of the two of them thinks it will.
Okay, so do you think that the three of us could have pulled Forrest off of Shawn if we needed to? Do we have the strength to do that?
I don't think we would have had the ability or the technical ability to do it either.
I think Fulton could maybe have lifted both of them at the same time, but not get Forrest off him.
Disappointed in all of you. All you have to do is go for a high value target. Like if you're poking me in the eye, I have to let go of Shawn's throat to get your hand out of my eye. If you're kicking me in the groin, I have to unwrap my legs from Shawn to pull my knees to my groin. You just simply have to create. You have to create something that they have to act upon, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No,
Next time somebody's beating up your husband, poke them in the eye. Well, don't just poke them, put your finger in their eye.
And groin.
They're going to stop beating up their husband and remove your hand from their eye.
Here's a fun story. I was trying so hard to pull your arm off of my throat that I actually separated some of the muscles from my rib and had to go to the doctor.
I think this is when you say, well, you want to be a UFC fighter.
Dude, honestly, though, that's the story that you don't retell, okay? Yeah. Well, like, come on now. Really?
Like, did you really get hurt in a fake fight? And I'm like, I don't think it was fake.
Yeah. It's, I mean, I don't even know how to feel about that. That's really just like, the couch potato trying to jump into the thing. You would have separated the cartilage in your ribs or strained the little Abby muscle, if you'd have tried to do like one of those like workout. What is the thing, like the Spartan run type deal? People
for sure.
Hurt those because they're like, you know what? I work out kinda. I'll go do this totally different thing. It's not like anything I've done before. I'll do great. No, you won't. Yeah. You won't. It's different.
No, I think the thing that's clear is that I was never meant to be a fighter.
You're too smart to be a fighter, Not that there aren't a couple smart fighters. I mean, I don't know any, but I'm sure there are.
All right, before we get out of here, let's go around. What's your favorite memory from you? This is just for our own nostalgic purposes, but what's everybody's favorite memory from the show? And I want to say before we do get into that, give you guys a second to think about it. Like, people always ask me, like, Dana's such a polarizing figure. Like, oh, what was it like to work for Dana? And like, oh man, if Dana does something that's in the news, like, oh, can you believe that? I'm like, yeah, I know a different side of Dana's. I know Forrest does as well. Like, we walked in there. I think it was me and you, Shawn. We walked into his office when we had this idea for the show, and sat down, showed him like 2 minutes of it, and it was absolutely terrible. Like, I think back to it, like, how did he watch this and say yes? But he was a guy that empowers his staff to, like, you know, try things out and see what works, throw stuff at the wall. He was always so supportive. So, you know, that's kind of the coolest memory of me, like sweating my butt off going into that office and him saying, yeah. And plus it was like, you know, obviously, you know, he loves Forrest and it was a fun idea with Forrest, but it was cool.
My favorite episode we ever did, and it was like a promo. You guys did like a monster truck style promo for one of the fights. It was like Sunday or whatever, and like we just kind of gave you the idea, and then you guys just did it, and you did it so perfectly. We edited it with, like, you know, explosions and fire and like, oh my god, it's so funny. We have to go find that.
It was what I remember was one that we like purposely like cut incorrectly. We put the fire so it didn't fill the screen. The green, like we had a green screen or something in the background that didn't, it like cut arms off, but oh my god.
And I liked when Forrest shaved his head. That was really good.
What did Cody Garbrandt?
I think one of my favorites when Forrest came back from UFC or Tough Latam, when he went down there. I think he came back and we had one of our Latam producers on set that day, and it just got wild quickly, out of control. And our Latam producer, Christian, hadn't ever been in the studio, had never seen us do this, and he was like, what's happening? Why is, you know, like Forrest started laughing hysterically and was like pointing at him, and we were talking about.
He said he wanted to rear young men.
Yeah, rear young men, and I was like, oh man, this is, and the uncomfortableness that I got from Christian, I was like, this is great. This is why I'm here. I love this part.
Oh God, that oh my gosh, I remember it. It was great. I forgot. I went down and coached for like a month in Argentina. What the hell? Oh my God,
I mean, some of my favorite things, and I'll do a little bit of the behind the scenes favorites, and I guess kind of the more meaningful sides. Our show was always one that we did it, and it was successful, and nobody could understand why. It was like every week we would post it, and it would get hundreds of thousands of views. And I just was looking last night. One of the episodes got over 1 million views, and everybody else in the office that was creating content, especially, was looking at it like, "What the hell is going on? Like, how are you doing this?" And you know, I'd be going, you know, printing out the little, like, right before the filming, we'd go print the little note cards out, because like the rankings would come out to us at like Monday at noon. We'd film the show at like 1, and then we would edit it that day and post it either that Monday night or the following morning. But you know, in getting the show made, it was one that it was really this like massive team effort. There's so many people that were involved with getting to this point. I'll never forget the first pitch meeting that we had for this, which was super intimidating. Like, we were sitting down in this massive conference room that had 30 chairs at it, and we just had a really cool idea, and they were grilling me with these like questions of like, what cameras are you going to use? What lighting are you going to use? You know, how are you going to do this? How are you going to do this? And I didn't really know Forrest that well at the time. And I remember at one point in the meeting, Forrest just goes, "Hey, can you guys just relax and we're going to make a show. So how about you just ask questions about what we need to make it, and either help us or just stop," which is a thing that I could have not ever done. You know, nobody else could have done that. And you know, it's a thing that if you wouldn't have been in that room on that day, I don't know if the show would have got done. The countless hours, Matt, that you put into it, making sure that you took it so serious to make sure that it was accurate and factual, and you know, something that we could be proud of. You know, it was super important, and that was there on every episode to make sure that everything got done. You know, that we had the location that we were going to be at, that everybody had all of the pieces that we needed. That, you know, if any one of these pieces, and you know, obviously Elise has done lots of things, you know, related to editing the show, producing the show, you know, all that stuff as well. But it's just one of those like weird, just eras in time that if any one of the people involved with it would have been different, I'm not really sure how it would have played out. So some of my favorite memories with the show are it felt like we were doing Wayne's World, that we were doing something that we were having fun with. For whatever reason, people were watching it. I can't remember a meeting we ever had that was analyzing metrics and like the demographic and the audience. We just did it, and for some reason it worked, and it's just something that I just look back on, and I think it shows. You go back and watch the shows, you could tell that everyone involved is having a blast, because it was hard. I mean, it was to get that done in the period of time that we did. It was something that that we all worked very hard on, and I don't know, just that all of the stuff that led into the show actually getting made, to me it's just so much fun.
It was great because we did it in the basement.
Yes.
I'm glad you guys did all that work. One of the things I loved about it was, and as much as I mess around, I really wanted to be accurate, and I wanted it to be a good show. I at least wanted to come off, at least say the right things, but like what actually happened in the fight, but I love that you guys were there to like worry about it. And that's one of the reasons why I never worried, is because you guys were all worried about it. So I was like, well, they're going to fix it or they're not. So I don't need to worry about it. I'll just try.
Well, and it's funny. It's funny. I forgot about this too. When you mentioned the basement, I mean, literally what happened was at the old UFC building, there was a studio, and we were using, they said, okay, well, you can use the studio. And after, I don't know, maybe 10 episodes, they said, hey, we got something else going on, so you guys can't do the show anymore. So you can't use the studio. And we said, oh, well, that doesn't matter. We'll do it anywhere. And so we're like, can we go do it in the gym? And they said, yeah, but we're not going to close the gym. People are going to be working out in there. And we're like, okay.
I think it gave more character. Like, I loved the gym setting. I thought it was great.
Man, it kind of got people extra juiced when they came into the gym and the show was going on while they were working out. I think they were like, yeah, man, like I got to make sure I show up today. Forrest is doing the show. So it worked out for him. What were you going to say, Fulton?
No, I think one of the things too is like you said, the gym was an awesome sort of setting for the whole thing. And it just, like I said, it made it feel more relatable. And I think the struggle to I also feel like we were constantly always trying to like Forrest said, like we're trying to do a good show. Lisa, myself, and Shawn and Matt were all worrying about us, talking about it all the time. And then I remember when we got that one of the rankings report, one of the first rankings report that we ever had on the front carousel of the YouTube page, UFC YouTube page. And I remember feeling like that was like we had made it. Like, all right, the show has made it. We're on the front carousel. We're gonna be all right. This is and I think the kind of growth of the show was fun to see as well. So
there's
always
in the comments. There's a playlist that you can find all the old episodes. So yeah, if you want to go check them out, there was a lot of fun in those.
There was always concern too that like when it started doing well, it's like, oh man, now people are paying attention. So do we have to do something different now?
I think we didn't. We didn't change it, and that's what made it so endearing,
And I mentioned it before. I would say, I mean, that Nancy Gay, who was the editor-in-chief at the time, I don't even know the battles that she fought, because there's a lot of things that we, that heard about that never came to us, that I think that she figured out before, it ever affected the show at all. And she was almost that like buffer for us. That was like, I'll take care of everything. You guys just go keep making something great.
And to your point, like, for Fulto obviously was a big one, but like, Krista Hall, Edward Muncie, there were so many different people that like we used to have like weekly content meetings. And when the rankings report first started, we had a lot of feedback in those meetings, and just being friends with everybody there, like Travis and John, the Frenchman that was in a couple of the he produced a couple of those shows, and he didn't talk a lot, but we had a bunch of interns that came through there. I know Paul Owen reached out to me and said, oh, I can't wait for this. So yeah, it was super fun. And Forrest was you kept us all entertained at all times, which made it, I think so fun to be around it every day, because it was so much like, what's going to happen today? What kind of fun things are going to kind of come out of today? So that was a cool story.
Oh, can Can I tell? Oh, I've got one more memory.
Yep.
And I just thought about this. We had a couple weeks where, like Forrest, when you went down and was coaching on the Tough series, where we had some guest hosts that were previous fighters, and one guest host that we had was Frank Mir, and we met with him like before the show to like talk him through everything. And I mean, Frank's super intimidating, and then he did the show, and everything was great. And I'll never forget the scariest thing, because I got his number and was texting him about the show right before we did it. Like maybe a week after the show, I'm at the office. I get a text and it says that it's from Frank Mir, and I'm like, oh, like I don't know, oh, crap. What am I? And I open it up and it just says like, hey man, we need to talk. I've yet to receive my money, and I'm just like. And I was like, I'm not really sure. And he's like, and then he started going like, no, I talked to this person and whatever. And like, he was giving names of like people that work there. And he's like, so like, I need my money. And I'm just, like thinking that he's just going to like come here and just
Show up at your door.
Nicest guy in the world. But now I'm like, Frank's going to come beat me up one day. Like
Hey,
at the
listen,
time he was,
if that would have
like,
happened though, we would have probably set up a camera and had Lisa film it and then put it on the show.
Yeah,
and then
for
we
sure.
would open like a GoFundMe for your medical bills.
So well, first of all, I think we should. I mean, this I'm assuming is the first rankings report reunion of more to come. But
Yeah, I'd love to do it again. Anytime.
maybe we get a guest host that we tell them that they're only allowed to talk about their experience with the show and nothing else.
That sounds great. There's some. I'm sure Uriah Hall would love to do that. Actually.
Yeah.
All right, guys, this has been awesome. Go back to your daily lives. This was so cool to see all your faces. And we'll talk soon.
Thanks for having
All
us.
right, it was great,
Thanks
guys.
for having
Thank you
us.
so
It was
much.
fun. Miss you
Bye,
guys.
everybody.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
see
It was
ya.
great to see you all.
Yeah,
All
great
right,
to see
guys.
everybody too.
Bye.